Cut!
Good morning, everyone, and how are you doing today? We're doing great. Are you doing great, Fernando?
I'm doing perfect.
We have a Dodge Ram. I know, right? Cool. We've done plenty of Dodge Rams. There's nothing new here happening as far as that goes. But, interesting thing, yesterday I had a phone call for a guy that was trying to do a Jeep Wrangler. Even though we have I know, right? We have several videos with Jeep Wranglers. He was having a really hard time with the harness. There again, we have several videos showing you how to do the harness. One last time, probably not, but one more time, what we're gonna do today is take you through the Chrysler harness. We're gonna use the pac-audio RP4 harness for this. So we're gonna walk you through the steps. Does it need 4 speaker wires or 8 speaker wires? Is it a premium sound or non-premium sound? Is basically what that means. Then we'll talk you through all the colors on the harness and generally that kind of funness, along with, we're putting 6 new speakers in this. So we're gonna replace the 4 6x9s in the doors, ooh, that was loud, with some kicker 6x9s, as well as replacing the 3.5s in the dash with some kicker 3.5. So we're gonna show you how to put caps on those so that you can block the bass. That way you're not trying to play a 6x9 and a 3.5 at the same frequency. Bad idea. Without further ado, Fernando, you ready?
Ready.
Let's get to this. So anytime we do one of these with the little wings, as I call them, I like to use this kit. This is the metric kit. It's the 956511. I feel this kit looks better than everyone else's kit. We're gonna use the pac-audio RP4 CH11. We have the antenna adapter that we're gonna need, as well as 2 47 microfarad caps. These are, all right, let me close, as well as 2 of these guys. These are A47 microfarad caps. All right, this is what you wanna look for. These are made by Stinger. You can get them anywhere. That's just cool heat shrink wrap that they have put on their caps. But these are the caps you want for the 3.5s in the dash. All right, so the speakers we're gonna put in, the 6x9s are the CSC 693s, and then the DSC 350s. All right, let's go ahead and get this radio out of the dash. First thing you want to do is remove the rubber from up top and down here in the pocket. Now these are torque, these are 7mm. So if you have this cool AC power outlet here, there is a screw behind there. Some of them have pockets here. There might be a screw there. This is the only other place where a screw would be. All right, let's go ahead and open this guy up. Now every one of these comes with this guy right here. This is an instruction manual. Now they update this constantly, so if you get one of these and you're like, some of this doesn't make sense, or if you're just curious, or you just like to read from your phone, you can go to their website and download the most updated version of this instruction manual. Let's talk about this real quick. You have what each wire does right here. This is what each wire on this harness does. It explains it right here. And then of course these are important notes. These are important. It tells you right here, important. You know, really at the end of the day, if you read just these 2 things, you're ahead of the game. When you open it up, this talks all about the steering wheel controls. The only part that you need to worry about is this piece right here. This is what type of radio you're putting in. So for example, we're putting in a Pioneer, it's 7. Kenwood, it'd be 3. Right here, this shows you there's a little dial on the side of this brain right here, and it corresponds to that number. What we like to do as soon as we open one of these up is turn it to 7 because we're doing a Pioneer. Now the rest of these, this is the default programming. This is what it comes default for. And then over here, if you'd like to change it to something else, so like if you're doing something with CarPlay or Android Auto and you'd like one of the buttons to be push to talk, you can remap the buttons, and this is what this talks about. And then on the back, this is the troubleshooting and test and verification. So this talks about testing. If you turn it on and it works, you've pretty much tested it. This talks about vehicle entertainment systems, so cars that have like backup cameras or rear seat entertainment. You may need additional harnesses in order to get those to function. That's the section here that talks about that. We've glossed over this. The kit comes with 2 different harnesses. The pack makes it easy. They make one solution for all the vehicles. The difference is in the harnesses. This is the older harness. This is the newer harness. This isn't the newest harness, it's just the newer harness. They've since changed the harness. The only difference was the harness. So they give you both. Now, because it's a newer car, we are going to use this one. Now, if you're an installer, save this, because this guy right here, this is a relay. This is a micro relay. So if you ever need a micro relay or you're trying to do something, this is a 30 amp micro relay. This thing is gold. All right, so now let's take it into the car and we'll talk about what is a 4 and an 8. All right, so when we talk about an 8 and a 4, We're talking about the speaker wires, these guys right here. Pair of grays, pair of greens. You flip the harness around, there's another pair of grays and another pair of greens. And those correspond to the green and purples here and the gray and whites here. Now, if this had a premium sound system, there would only be 4 of these. Specifically, it would just be the 4 where the rear are. The purple and green would be this green and these grays. Where the white and the gray are, these would be open, there'd be nothing there. And what you'd have to do is you have to wire your front and rear outputs of the radios up to the purple and green. This is what confuses people because you're not matching colors up. You're putting white to green and gray to purple. It's kind of tricky. People, that doesn't make any sense. But there's nothing here on this side, and if you were to hook it up color for color, you put your fronts to nothing, you wouldn't get any Bluetooth phone because the phone only comes out of the fronts. So that's why you have to connect it that way. No other reason. If we didn't have Bluetooth phones, then this would never be an issue. Or if the Bluetooth phone calls came out of all 4 channels, then that wouldn't be an issue either. But because it does, that's why we have to connect it. So when we say a 4 or an 8, that's what we're talking about. These guys here. That's it. Now, in Dodge, the only other wire that may or may not be here is this blue antenna wire right here. So if there's 5 wires in the bottom, it's got an amplified antenna. If there's only 4 wires in the bottom, then it does not. This one only has 4. It does not have the antenna. So this is an 8 with no antenna. I know this is one of those topics that it's like, huh?
You're confusing me.
Exactly. And that's why we've talked about it so much in these as well as the other videos we've done, is because we get a ton of calls on this. That's it. Now let's take this back over to the bench and we'll talk about this other thing they call on here, which is the navigation output, which is another headache. So what PAC likes to do is kind of bundle wires together where they feel are going to be light. This bundle here, which is called the navigation harness. This bundle here, which I have no idea what you call it other than the white stripe harness. So this has the remote turn on and the illumination in it. Thing to note about these is that even if it doesn't have an amplified system, this blue-white wire has to be connected. It has to do with waking up the smart module. Always hook up the blue-white wire. And then this is illumination. Most radios have illumination. If it doesn't, or again, just cap this off. Cap it off. Don't leave it just hanging like this in the dash. All right, navigation harness is made up of 3 wires. The reverse wire, the emergency brake wire, and the VSS, or vehicle speed pulse. The reason why it's called that is because most systems used to need these 3 wires in order for the navigation system to work properly. And this is a throwback. Even though Pioneer still has a VSS wire on their radio, you don't need to hook it up, because what it'll do is it'll work in what's called hybrid mode, which is what your standard Garmin, Magellan type navigation systems would work like. And of course the reverse wire, well, now that everyone's doing a backup camera, the reverse wire is important. Now each one of these manufacturers, this is PAC, iData, Metra, which is Access, they all do these a little bit differently as far as color codes. PAC tries to keep it as close to Pioneer, Kenwood as possible because those are the 2 most popular brands. You have somebody like Alpine that takes the orange-white wire, which is the universal color for illumination, and makes that reverse. Well, that could throw you for a loop, because if you hook your illumination wire up to the reverse trigger on that, every time you turn on your lights, it goes in the reverse camera. Way to go, Alpine. And then Access uses different colors like green, purple, and black, yellow to do things on their harness. Regardless of what harness you're putting in, this portion, and they all have this, make sure you check this out. Now if you're looking at like an iData harness, they put it all right here. And then they go ahead and list what each one of them do. And if it's not needed, it'll say not needed. So there's 2 different looks at what these harnesses could possibly look like. So basically what this all means is that the days of just buying a cheap $10 harness and plugging it in and calling it a day, those days are over. This is what it is to put a radio in a car, and it's not getting any easier. So just throwing things in without actually taking time to read the instructions, it's not going to work. You're gonna have to read these instructions and then watch cool videos like these where we explain what the instructions say. So now that we basically understand what this truck has, it has an 8, it has no antenna, we don't need the VSS, we don't need the emergency brake, our radio has illumination, and it has a reverse trigger, we can eliminate all the stuff we don't need, which I like to do, which if you've watched this show before, you know that. So we're gonna go ahead and cut this harness open. Alright, so we're to the point in this where we have this little box here, which we did mention is a relay. What does it do and why is it there? So these boxes can put about a half amp of accessory power out to turn on the radio, maybe even a full amp. Either way, it's not enough to do something like turn on a backup camera, turn on some LED lights, or any other oddball thing that you might want to have turn on and off with the key. And what used to happen is they'd have on these cool instructions that no one reads, a diagram to hook up a relay. And then of course everyone would just blow these up because they'd look at it and go, I don't know what that is, and poof. So they finally got wise to the game and started putting relays on these. So now you have a 30 amp relay coming off of the accessory out of this. So you can hook up multiple things to your accessory wire and turn them on with this adapter. Makes life a lot easier. Alright, so now we have the harness prettied up. Now there's one extra harness in this box, which is this guy here. This is the steering wheel control adapter for this particular box. What it does is it plugs into the bottom here, and it has two connectors. This is another thing that we get often asked. This is a blue-yellow. It is not a blue-white. It's a blue-yellow. If you look at it closely, it's a yellow stripe. And then this is what looks like an aux jack. Now, depending on the radio manufacturer, it's going to be one of these is going to attach to the back of the radio. If you have a Kenwood or a JVC, it's going to use this blue-yellow wire. The blue-yellow wire is in the main harness for the radio most of the time, and you'll connect this wire to it. So blue-yellow to blue-yellow. This doesn't go to anything else other than blue-yellow. Now, if you're not using a Kenwood or a JVC, go ahead and cut this, cap this off, do whatever you like. You're not gonna need it. Now, this end here is gonna plug into somewhere on the back of the radio. If you have a Pioneer, it's gonna plug directly into the back of the radio. Now, if you're doing one of these harnesses and you don't have the steering wheel controls, go ahead and remove this. Or if you're doing the Kenwood, this has a little rubber dicky on it. Make sure you keep this on here, or if it doesn't have one, tape this up. You don't want this banging around on the dash, touching anything ground, because then it will do strange things with the steering wheel control. What we have left over here are a bunch of wires, and two of them are going to be green. These two right here. One is going to be the positive left rear speaker, and the other one is going to be reverse. Depending on what pack harness you buy, they have since fixed this. This is just an older harness, meaning not older harness. This technology was made a while ago, and they haven't updated the harness yet. They're going through the process of updating all their harnesses to make the reverse trigger the purple-white wire, which is what it should be to match both Pioneer and Kenwood. So now, if you're silly like me and you just went ahead and taped all this up and you didn't mark it, what do? You don't want to hook it up wrong. No problem. All you have to do is take your voltmeter, put it on the little radiating sign here. That does this. Come over into the harness and go to the solid green wire, then just probe them. Alright, so this one is going to be the speaker. What we'll go ahead and do is just fold this one over like this until we're ready for it. And that's it. So now, recapping what we have, in case you don't know, and this is another thing. People are like, oh, you don't talk about every wire. Really? Yellow, battery. Orange-white, illumination. Blue-white, amplifier turn-on and wake-up for the smart module. Red is accessory. Turns on and off with the key. Black, still ground. White, green, gray, purple. Those are all speaker wires. There's a solid and a stripe. White is going to be driver's front. Gray is going to be passenger front. Green is going to be driver's rear, and purple is going to be passenger rear. Additional wires you may have in the harness that we removed are the VSS wire, as well as the emergency brake wire. We removed both of those because we're not going to be needing them for this. There again, tells you on the instructions what color those are. Now, at this point, we know what every wire is. Let's take a look at the radio harness. Now, on the radio harness, we have a yellow, which is going to match up to that yellow. We have a red, which is going to match up to that red. A black is going to match up to that black. We have the 8 speaker wires that are all going to match up to this harness. We have a blue-white, which will match up to that harness. We have an orange-white, which will match up to that harness. That leaves us with 3 wires that aren't going to color for color match up to this harness. One of them is purple-white. Purple-white, as we said, is the reverse wire. That's going to connect to this green wire down here that we have folded over. Next, we have the yellow-black wire. Yellow-black wire is for mute, and really the only time you'll ever use that is if you have OnStar and you're using a harness that is OnStar compatible. The last one is the light green. The light green is the emergency brake wire. This is the wire that unlocks the system so you can get into the menus and do silly things while you're driving. What we're going to do with this is we're going to hook up a micro bypass, which is this little guy right here. This is a real simple connection as well. It has 3 wires. It has a blue, it has a black, and it has a green. The blue is going to go to our blue-white, which is the remote turn on. The black, ground. And then the green is going to connect to to this light green here. And what that's gonna do is when the unit powers up, just like the blue white wire from the radio wakes up this module, it's also gonna wake up this module. Now, we get a lot of questions about reverse wire having something to do. Will I still be able to do my reverse camera if I have a bypass module? I have no idea where this line of questioning has come from. The only thing this does is just unlocks the radio so you can get into the menu system. It has nothing to do with reverse trigger. Nothing at all. I don't know why people ask that, but we get at least once a month someone says, I'm planning on putting a backup camera, I have a bypass module, will I still be able to do it? Yes, of course. They don't have anything to do with one another. Now, we just have to connect these wires to this here. And if you're going, geez Dean, you're really getting in depth on this. I'm sorry. We get a ton of questions about this, and I just really want to make sure that I go slow and talk it through, and I try to cover every single thing that you guys have asked us in the last year about these harnesses. The next question, how do we connect these two? That's a great question. We have a video talking about just that. How do I connect these two together? There's several ways. Solder, shrink wrap, butt connector, crimp caps, and then the two I hate, electrical tape and twist, and wire nuts. Don't use either one of those two, but the first three you can get away with using. They're all gonna get you to the same place, which is a radio in your dash. Now go ahead and connect your harness. We're gonna connect ours. Alright, so now we're all done. The harnesses is all prepped and ready to go. We went ahead and added this blue wire here. This is connected to the remote turn-on wire so that at some point he may want to add a subwoofer. He can do that now without us having to rip this whole thing open to redo it. Now what we've covered it in is this stuff here. This is Tessa tape. This is the felt interior tape version of it. Just gives it a more factory look and feel. So this is all set and ready to go into the car. So our Dodge Ram, like a lot of Dodges, have 3.5s in the dash, and it has 6x9s in the door. That is a combination that spells disaster in most cases, because if you hook the 6x9 up and the 3.5 onto the same channel, you have to cross the speaker over to the smallest of the two speakers. So in this case, the 3.5. So you have to take that 6x9 and cross it over exceptionally high so that you don't blow these 3.5s. Well, that's no good. I mean, who wants to have a 6x9 in the door sound like a 3.5? So then you say, well, I'll just let it play down a little lower. Well, 3.5s don't like bass. space at all. They're 3.5s. They don't move. Look at the size of these things. These things are tiny. So you want this to compete with a 6x9? Not gonna happen. That's where the base blockers come in. So you put the base blocker on so that it will actively cross this over a lot higher than the 6x9. Therefore, you can put the 6x9 down to a much lower crossover point, let it play, and this will have its own crossover point for it. Sounds like a good idea, right? So now what we want to do is connect our cap to this. There's a couple different ways you can do that, and of course we're going to show you the way we like to do it for these style speakers. Go ahead and rip that rubber off of these little connector ends that there was on there and grab yourself some heat shrink. Now if you want to, you can use the little rubber ends and just slide them back over. Now at this point what we like to do is solder these terminals onto here so that we actually only have one connection point, which is going to be down here. Now soldering on a speaker, believe it or not, is not the easiest thing to do. You don't want to spend a lot of time with the soldering gun on here because you can actually wick the solder down through the tinsel leads. So you want to be as quick as possible. So make sure your soldering gun is nice and hot before you actually get it anywhere near the speaker. Put a little bit of solder on it and then start as far away as possible. Drop the solder on, and you're good to go. Now go ahead and cover those with heat shrink. So now what we want to do, come down into here and cut just the positive wire. Spread it apart just like this. And starting closest towards the speaker, strip some away, put a little piece of heat shrink on there. Now take your capacitor, and what you want to do is just crisscross it like this. Put the edge on it like this, the tip of the wire, and just do this, just like that. Okay, and then you just slide it right down into place, like so. Now go ahead and cut off the excess lead just like that. Straighten it out. Then come over to the other side and do the same thing. Now go ahead and put your heat shrink over the ends and melt it on. Now you have your capacitor in line. I like to do one more step. I like to take a bigger piece of heat shrink, put it in the center. And then I like to take two little zip ties here. And there we go. Now on the end of the wire, what we're gonna add is what we like to use is bullet connectors. That's just these guys here. Makes a nice female-male connection, very reliable. Go ahead and crimp it into place. All right, so now we have our 3.5 all set and ready to go. If you'd like to go the extra step, you can go ahead and add some tape to it to make it look more factory. All right, so now this is done and ready to go in the car. We're gonna go into the car and put some of these in so that we can just plug the speaker in right just like that. And if we need to, we can unplug it and take the whole speaker out. Out of the bag, the kit looks like this. It literally sits just like this with these radios. It screws in. This is as low as it will go. But this is what we want it to look like. What we're gonna do is we're gonna show you how we get it from this to that. So what we want to do first is grab our cool 3-inch Sandy disc. If you guys don't have one of these and you want to be a serious installer, this is the number one. This is it, man. You've seen me use this in every video. I can't get along without this. This is mine. I love this tool. You know, we have links to all these in the description. You can use a Dremel. All right, now what we want to do is take this guy here, put this flat just like this, and we're going to work our way forward with it. All right, so what we want to do now, before we clean this up, is we want to cut off a little bit more. We want to come up into this, making this overall thinner. You guys see me scrape plastic with this all the time. I like to come along this inside edge here, take that sharp, 90 off of there, just put a little bit of a round over on it. All right, so now we can test fit it, make sure it's down low enough, and it is. So now what we like, you've seen us use this before too. This is just regular foam, weather stripping. This stuff is black. What we want to do is we want to put 2 layers of it in here, just like this. So we're going to take our scissor and cut off some, get an idea of where it needs to be. Now we can put it on here. And the reason why we put this foam in here is because, like, if you're when it's down like this, if you kind of look at it from the side like that, you may see through the corner because this is round and this is flat. Not that you'd probably see it because the dash is dark, but we still, we want to make sure it's the way it needs to be. Now go ahead and flip it on its side, and we have to make the screw holes. We have to make them a little different. We got to make them bigger. So go ahead and mark where they need to be, and we're going to use our rotozip bit to do that. Alright, so there you go. Now they're both flush. Now the last thing you want to do is these guys right here stick up on both front and back. This one's barely, this one's a lot. You want to flush these down. You can either score it with a razor knife, or as usual, I'm going to use this. Alright, so there you go. This is looking all flush. We're going to go ahead and get this in the truck. Alright, so once you get it all plugged in, what you want to do at this point is turn it on and make sure that your steering wheel controls are correct. Okay, so the steering wheel controls are good. We'll screw the radio in. So, when you're screwing these in, you have to go very slow. You don't want to torque the radio. This is all plastic on plastic. So on this kit, it has some little teeth right here. We're gonna have to remove those. Now, even though this was just a simple radio and 6 speakers, we gotta go ahead and throw the CD in and do a polarity check. Alright, all the speakers tested good for polarity. This one's done. And in case you're new to this channel and you're like, what the heck are they talking about? That's this guy right here. It's a little polarity checker. What it does is it moves the speaker in one direction, allows us to go around to each corner of the car and make sure that all the speakers are moving in the same direction. If you'd like to pick one of these up, we have a link to it in the description down below. Alright guys, the Ram is done. I hope that little wiring harness tutorial helped you guys out a little bit. And definitely I hope that dash kit tutorial helped you out a little bit, because oh man, they all suck, and that's the best one that they have. Sad, I know, right? All right, we're gonna get this out of here because we got more cars waiting.